Good afternoon, everybody. Are you guys hearing that feedback?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
I heard it.
Let's see if it continues. Hopefully not, because I don't know what to do about it. Is that any better? No.
Talking.
Um, I'm gonna sign out and come back in because I don't know why this is doing that before we get into a meeting and see if that helps. Well,
You're the host. Can you do that? And
yeah, I thought, now we're not getting the feedback, are we?
no, I'm fine. Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll just continue then and hope for, I took off my ear pods. I don't know if that has anything to do with this. We'll see how it goes. I put in a SOS to Jen Datum, so we'll see if she comes on board to help. Thank you guys for joining us for the special meeting of Tuesday, May 17th, the Community Connectivity Grant Committee. We've been working so hard. We have had so many meetings and have so much progress to show for it. So I got some really lovely texts today from a couple of people that had been walking their children on the sidewalks down to the beach, and they sent me a note about how great it is. Last night, the Board of Finance, also the chair, complimented the sidewalks. So the project looked good. So, you know, we should all really, really be pleased with that. We have the committee today on board, besides myself, Bonnie Reamsnyder, Eric Olson, Frank Pappalardo, Jim Lampos, Tim Griswold, ex officio, and Kurt Proteretta, our design engineer from BSC Group. Right now, we have the only person on the line besides ourselves is Kate Hewitt, reporter for the Connecticut Examiner. So welcome, Kate. The first part of our meeting is public comment. Right now, there is no public available to talk. So I guess what I'll do is entertain a motion to open the public comment officially, and then nobody joins us, then we will make a formal motion to close the public comment.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Bonnie.
I'll second.
Thank you, Eric. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, public comment. Kate, you are our public. Do you have anything you'd like to ask the committee? I know you had emailed me last night with some questions on the property, so maybe we can address it as a committee for you.
I don't have questions at this time. Thank you so much, Mary Jo. Is there another opportunity at the end?
No?
This is the only opportunity. Okay, I'm going to have to pass for now. Thanks so much.
Okay, make a motion to close public comment.
I'll
Second.
second.
I heard Jim. Thank you, Frank. Thank you, Jim. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any discussion or any nays, any abstentions? My motion carries. Thank you. We have the next agenda item is the project update, which is primarily why we're holding this meeting, which was to look at the base plan that BSC was going to be working on for our transportation hub. And he just sent it to me, and I did forward it to the committee, but I think we're going to have Kurt share his screen unless there's anything people want to talk about before I turn it over to Kurt. Okay. All right, Kurt, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, my pleasure. So
Thank
let me just, okay, can everybody see that?
Yes.
Yep.
All right, so what I'll do is I'll just quickly walk through it and then we can circle back. Obviously, more than happy to answer any questions, and then I'd like to get some feedback from the committee on a few of the design options that we have. So in general terms, to orient ourselves, Shore Road, Route 156 is at the bottom of the screen. North, moving towards the top of the page. As you can see, we have the roadway, which is generally at the same location of the existing road that's out there today, 22 feet wide. Our base plan, if you recall, is going to be that it's a gravel road, and we'll request from the contractor some alternates for bituminous pavement. And we had included also a request for pervious paver materials. For that road, we have concrete aprons out at the edges where it meets the town roads. And again, that's to keep gravel or anything from spilling out into the road. And the aprons tend to be where they meet the edge of the road, an area where we want the highest durability. So that's why we use concrete there. A little hard to see on this plan, but we have some decorative piles flanking the roadway. So they look like this. And as I go through, I'll just kind of click on some of the images that we have. So given that nautical theme, those would be a nice touch to flank the roadway. We will be including on the gravel road at the bus shelter. It's not shown here because we're still determining specifically how it's going to be configured, but we're going to include a section, regardless of what the road is made out of bituminous material at the bus shelter. So I just wanted to point that out. It's not visible on this plan, but it is in our design drawings now. And we're just going to work on the size of that based on the specific size of the buses and those things. So that'll be integrated into the next revision of the design, which will come as early as tomorrow, actually.
Kurt, will the whole road be paved or just in front of the station?
Well, the base project is that the road will be gravel, and just in front of the bus stop would be paved.
Mm-hmm.
We will also request as an alternate for the entire road to be priced out as paved, just so we can see where that comes in.
Yeah, how long is the road from side to side, do you believe?
It's 100 and, well, it's on my screen, so my scale is off.
Maybe about 150 feet?
Yeah, I could get you an exact number because this is all in the computer. Yeah, approximately. Yep.
Okay.
So that's the road. That's ingress and egress. And then some of the things that we can talk about is, would the committee like this to be a one-way circulation? Two-way circulation? As we know, the bus access point is on what we call the passenger side of the bus. So it makes sense that the bus would be coming in on the
West to
left-hand side of the
east.
screen. You know, in some instances, there's really no reason for any vehicle to come in the other way. So something to think about. For one-way circulation.
Kurt, how would that impact it? How does that impact the design at all?
It doesn't really impact it at all, because the road is wide enough to accommodate two vehicles passing each other.
Okay.
And keep in mind, you know, I call it a road. it's more akin to a driveway. These vehicles are going to be doing 5 miles an hour, right? So it's not like it's you know, a full road. These vehicles will be going extremely slow. And please keep in mind that depending on what is happening at the time, let's say the town desires to use it for event parking or something like that, the direction of travel could also be changed, right? It doesn't have to be absolutely fixed with permanently installed signs. So there's a lot of flexibility there. So that's the primary access road. You can see we sketched in the sidewalk on Shore Road. We've added a sidewalk ramp at the crosswalk that's there today. That crosswalk would remain. We have a 5-foot sidewalk extending north from the sidewalk to the location of the bus shelter. And that's constructed the same way that the rest of the sidewalk is, what we've typically been calling a standard 5-foot sidewalk. At the bus shelter, we have a concrete pad that's 25 feet by 12 feet. And on the left side, it's essentially, or that would be the west side, but the left side looking at here, that would essentially be a continuation of the 5-foot sidewalk. In the front of the bus shelter, we wanted to create some area for people to congregate. For example, if it's a nice day, people may not necessarily want to stay in the bus shelter itself. Or if you have enough people, you could have people that are in the bus shelter and outside the bus shelter. So we wanted to create an area for people to stand out front. It's about 5 to 6 feet of area that they can stand and congregate. On the other side, we extended the pad to accommodate a couple of bike racks and a bike repair station. And that extends out 6 to 7 feet. So here is an image of what the bike repair station looks like. Various brands are available. At this point, we'll ask the contractor to price out a couple of brands, but the specifics will be defined as an or equal in the final design. So these have an area to hang up the bike. You can see they've got some tools there that are fastened with steel cable, and then there's a bike pump. Some of the bike repair stations don't have the tools, so that's something that the committee could think about. Some of them are simply the rack and the air pump. The bike racks are consistent with what's been used on Hartford Avenue. Same type, same style. So there's some design consistency there. Up near, I can't remember the address to the home, we know that there is a concern with some screening. So we've showed some screening here. We have a couple of different options for what we actually use. I'll skip that for a second. These are native species. The key is that they're evergreen. So we could use a white spruce, western red cedar, or Leyland cypress, or a combination thereof. These plants are generally in the same ballpark price-wise. I'd be happy to even have a discussion with the homeowner if they had some certain, but we could do a single species, a mix, but that's the idea, is to create some screening over there, native species, deer resistant, virtually no maintenance. And then one of the questions for the committee is, would you like any other plantings? Those are easy to add. My suggestion would be to wait to see where the pricing comes in, but we can absolutely layer in other little planting areas as desired. Once the base plan is approved in principle, we can start layering in other things. Another question I had was the bench. I had the image up there that I skipped. I think it would be nice to have a bench or two out there, but I'm absolutely open to your thoughts as to where you might want that to go. Again, the bench is the same bench that we used down on Hartford Avenue for design consistency. And really, we could place those anywhere, one or two benches. Similarly, trash cans, we could include a trash can on here. Very easy stuff. Typically, those would be bolted down proximal to the bus shelter. So in
Kurt?
general, yeah, go ahead, Tim.
Kurt, I might suggest when you start talking about the plantings, we better involve our tree commission, which has jurisdiction over town trees on town property.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will take my cues from the committee as to, what your thoughts are. In other words, I don't want to convey the wrong message that we're asking them to dictate a planting plan, for the site. So I welcome the committee's thoughts on if you want any additional plantings at all, or if you would like to have a certain amount, and then I'm happy to engage the what was it, Tim? The tree commission?
Yeah, I can get you the contact information.
Yep.
They're not difficult. It's just that's their charge.
Absolutely. Yeah. I just want to make sure that the committee is comfortable with the direction it's heading. I don't want to spend your money, in a separate, sort of along a separate path. I want
Right.
to make sure that we're all in sync. So the benches, any other plantings, and anything else that anyone feels like they'd like to see out here, we can layer those things in now that we sort of have the base layout completed. So with that, I welcome thoughts, comments, ideas, all the above. Oh, and I just wanted to point out, we at this point, we do have I won't go through it. It's kind of dry, but we have all the details of the various designs in here. So this is a full preliminary design that the contractor has sufficient detail to price out for us at this stage.
I think we ought to look at the possibility of an additional green wall to the property north on the drawing there, just in the
This
event
area?
that, yeah.
Okay.
So that should be, I think we should have that in there. I mean, you've got a lot of plantings in there, but I'm not sure you need that many trees. So we'd have to look at what the 10-year size of each one is going to be. I'd like to see a couple of shade trees plugged into the program somewhere along the line.
All right.
Wherever they make the most sense. I'd also like to see the nautical theme extended maybe along the southern border of the driveway with piles and rope fencing, that rope fencing we talked about last week. So I'd like to see some of that occur, at least on the southern portion of the driveway. Kind of delineates the driveway a little bit better and makes it a more attractive visual street attraction.
Okay.
So those are the kind of things that I'm looking at. Obviously, a couple of benches I think would be most appropriate. I'm not sure we need to put them on pads. We may just want a small asphalt pad for the size of the bench, or maybe the size of concrete pad, the size of the bench. So it's a little bit easier maintenance wise for mowing and things of that nature. I don't think we need any extensive padding pad underneath the benches. I just like to see it dressed up with some more amenities type of thing. And the amenities are pretty easy. We can pull them out if the cost comes out high. We can say, okay, instead of 4 shade trees, we could pull 2 of them out and have 2 shade trees and stuff of that nature. So if he starts to, if we put this together and and ask him for an a la carte menu, it'd be easier for us to adjust the pricing.
All right, thank you, Frank.
I think plantings would be very nice too. And Kurt, you may recall when we did the trees on Hartford Avenue, we got the plan together approved by the committee, and then we submitted what we had in mind to the tree commission, who approved or didn't approve it. And I think that is what they would want. They don't want to decide for us. They want to see what our thoughts are. So, and I think that's very appropriate because they will end up in charge of making sure that they survive. But I think in that section where the bus shelter is, I think it would be nice
Around
to
here.
have some plantings such as flowers or something at the front. I like the idea of shade trees. And as far as flowers and stuff, we could also contact the Duck River Garden Club to help us with a plan. And to help us with maintenance of it, because they like doing things like that, and they already maintain the police station.
Yeah,
Um,
they just pulled out of maintenance of the flagpole area.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not sure that, that's gonna be a doable thing for them.
And the other thought I had, and this is just a thought to throw out there, is it may be a suggestion to have a couple of little kiosks with information about Soundview, the history of Soundview, the history of the beach community in general, something people can read through and look through, some old pictures, maybe a couple of them closer to the bus shelter while people are waiting. It's just something we can kind of noodle on.
Okay.
And maybe getting the cost for kiosks would be helpful.
Ani,
Just-
would you envision that as like a, almost like an interpretive or informational sign that's sort of built in, or are you thinking more of an actual in the
I'm-
truest sense, a kiosk?
I'm thinking of a stand with a flat surface tilted up a little bit. And the information can be on that.
Perfect.
It's similar
okay.
to, I think Old Saybrook has one similar to that. And
Great.
that really would be, up to people in the area to help populate what we put on there. Frank, I don't know how you feel about that, or Jim. You live in the area. Jim, you're the historian for the area,
I'm the-
so
Historian, yeah, no, I'd love to see something like that.
I think it's a great idea, yeah.
Some kind of placemaking,
yeah,
element, something that would excite people about the area, inform them about the area a little bit, and increase their respect for the neighborhood and the beach. I think the little park that's under the Baldwin Bridge here in Old Lyme has something similar. It's not a very well attended park, but it's nice. And I think the boat launch at, not Ferry Road, but Smith Neck has something like that too. And very informative. So, something about the history of the area, the geology, Native Americans, et cetera. It'd be really nice. This design here seems pretty basic. Kurt, if I'm not mistaken, we're just talking about a 5-foot sidewalk up to a concrete pad, and then a bike rack and a bike repair station, and that's pretty much the size of what we're asking for.
Yeah, that's correct, Jim. Yep.
Okay, that's pretty basic stuff. And then the concrete aprons. I do like Frank's idea of kind of delineating that southern border of the gravel road so that we make that front area a little bit more recreational, and not just something that everyone can drive over. It would also help protect that concrete pad. so that you don't get, you know, some knucklehead just driving into the parking lot and, parking on that concrete pad. Just something that defines it a little bit more, because right now it just seems kind of wide open. But it doesn't seem, like it's hugely ambitious, and it leaves a lot of room to do the kinds of things that Bonnie was talking about, which could be a step 2, kind of populating that little area around the bus shelter with whatever we think is appropriate, even interactive art, something, I think about the cube in Astor Place in New York City, where you can just kind of spin the cube and people love that kind of thing. And that's something we can add in later. We don't have to, we wouldn't have time right now to even come up with these ideas, but
I agree, but I think if we plan for it, we can also do a little bit of fundraising or budgeting with the finance, in future budgets, little at a time.
And we could just say, future, interactive artwork, signage, et cetera, et cetera. One thing I'm concerned about, have we talked to DOT or Ninetown Transit about the viability of a gravel road for the bus?
Well, they respond that it's got to be a solid base in front of the stop.
Okay.
Ideally, it would be nice to have the whole thing paved so you don't have potholes and puddles and stuff. So we'll see. But I think they also would not be too enthusiastic about having the bus come in from the east side with the passenger door facing north and having people walk around the front of the bus to get in it.
Right. It would have to be.
Might be sensible to have a one-way from west to east.
Well, the road's wide enough, Tim, we could adjust the direction aspect of it later, but right now it's wide enough so that we can go 2 ways, and it kind of covers us both ways.
We can get the transit districts. I mean, they may not want a bus to load going in a westbound direction, have people walk in front of it. I don't know.
Well, they can always drive in any direction they want, so
we'll see.
Yeah.
And we should probably not have shade trees in the front, because the bus driver should be able to see whether there's someone actually in the bus shelter. If there's no one there, they can just keep driving. Most of the time there'll be no one there, so it would be a stop that they wouldn't take if they had good visibility.
If the canopy is high enough, Jim, I think you're okay with that. I mean, it depends on the tree, of course. So
yeah, we just have to be careful about how they're placed so we keep the visibility.
I make a decent curb appeal on this thing from the front side,
Yeah,
Great.
yeah.
Is their standard shelter clear on all sides, or does it have a solid back?
I think
believe it's clear on all sides.
Yeah, it might have a beam in the middle, a vertical beam of some sort, but.
Okay, that's okay. Feedback. Anything else? Ideas? Open to anything.
I guess we'd have to talk to the landowners when we're planting stuff in front of the houses to make sure the stuff wouldn't grow into what they consider their view, if there is such a thing.
well, I think we have the 2 properties there. I think the property closest is Pinto, I think it is, Mary Jo.
Yes.
And of course, he had some difficulties in the past just because of communication issues. So I think it'd be very appropriate for us to get his way in on what kind of trees and how many, and also the further back property is Lishing. Once again, she's part of the Soundview Commission, so appropriate to get their feedback on that too.
Yeah. And there is not a communication problem with that family. It's just that they don't live here very often, so it's hard to get a hold of them. But he would, I think, welcome to be included in this.
Well, we can put the plan together, Kurt, with the plantings, and then over the course, at least that way it gives us a baseline to start to talk about costing, and then we can work with the individual homeowner. and adjust from there.
Yeah, that's really the key, is to get something to the contractor that they can start to price. And keep in mind, in the meantime, we'll keep going. It's gonna take them a few days, at best, based on what we've seen, for them to price this up. And, we'll certainly bring this up, and we'll actually check in at our, bi-weekly construction meeting this coming Tuesday. But, we'll be able to get this into with the committee's approval, we'll get this into the contractor's hands tomorrow to have him start pricing it up.
I just think it's a great opportunity to make the sort of the foundation of what we're calling, the Soundview Gateway. It can look so attractive down there. And so, I think we need to do the best we can with what money we have. And even plan for more, even if we don't have money.
Yeah, this is great. Thank you. I think I told you guys maybe a week or so ago, we've had so many meetings here that I showed Kurt the rock at that home on Shore Road, and I forget what the side street is, but one of the private subdivisions there that have been blasting, Jim had shared, that had all those wonderful granite pieces, and a lot of it with the pink. And I think it was yesterday I was driving by and I saw one of the homeowners walking on the road, and I just drove in and I just stopped her and just said, hey, at some point, can we talk about maybe having this rock? And she said, yeah, I'm sure my husband would like to get rid of it. So we had a preliminary, very brief discussion, but it sounds like we might be able to get some of that very cool looking rock brought over to that area for us to work with.
Yeah, if we could just some of that now while we have the contractors down here and while the homeowner is still in the construction phase, they haven't buttoned up the lot yet.
Yeah.
And maybe we can, knock out Paul Nickerson's boulders at the same time, kind of create a nice little theme, but drop one right here in this bus shelter area next to the sidewalk maybe, and then use some for Paul's.
Yep.
Good idea.
Do we need to have a motion to allow Kurt to start getting costing, or is this just a preliminary enough so we just say, go ahead, start getting costing?
I think we can do a motion.
I'll make a motion that Kurt starts to develop costing with the contractor, and as he proceeds on adding to the design based on our conversations today.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Bonnie. Discussion. This is the preliminary design, correct?
That is correct.
Any other discussion? Time to vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you very much, Kurt. So
Thank you.
You're going to be sending this over to Martin Lavero. You said it might take him a few days. And at that point, how do you see the process working? Sending us the detail of the cost for us to evaluate?
Yeah, what I will do is, based on the feedback, and thanks again for wonderful feedback, I'll get those ideas incorporated into the plan, knowing that some of them may vary, but the key is going to be to have them there, so at least he carries some monies for them. We'll refine those during the final design if things move forward. So that will all happen tomorrow. So I'll put all these additional things into the plan, and we'll get that revised plan to the contractor tomorrow. Once he gives us the initial estimate, we will either revise up or down. So for example, if he comes in high, we'll start looking at things that could be taken out. If he comes in low, if there are other amenities that want to be added, we can then do that. At some point, we'll achieve, a balance where it's within the budget. And at that time, we would then need to go through our permitting process. Because that would have to happen before he's able to construct the improvements. So once that happened, then we would go through the permitting process. Once the permits are in place, it's relatively straightforward. The project would simply do a change order to the contractor. The plan set as approved would be essentially the construction documents in the change order. We already have all of the specifications and the other items in the base contract that covers the work. So all of this would just be done as a change order by the contractor. And once the change order was executed, he would proceed without delay and just literally start with building the improvements.
Okay,
Sounds great.
This has to go through DOT as well at the end, right?
Because we are not working on DOT's property, we're speculating that the approval process will be extremely streamlined. It will need to be reviewed by DOT in Newington because it's part of the grant. However, because of its very nature, we are anticipating that that review process would be very quick also.
Good questions. Kurt, I know you had talked extensively with Dan Beret, our zoning official. At what point can we apply to get at the meetings, like for planning referral and for zoning? We have to have the design done at that point before we can apply. Is that right?
We can probably get preliminary.
Yeah, I mean, typically, well, based on the town, I can only go by what the town's regulations say. And Dan has confirmed that because the town as an entity is not exempt from your zoning regulations, you have to apply as if anybody else would. And your regulations say that essentially you have to have a complete set of permit drawings and you have a checklist that depicts the various things that need to be included in that submittal. Really, the biggest part of that, because this is a fairly simple endeavor, is the base survey to A2, T2 standards of the property. So in general, historically, in my experience, what you're submitting to a planning and zoning commission is approaching 95% design. But again, in this case, because it's fairly simple, the difference between what you see today and the 95% design, it's not dramatic differences, right? It's not like we're adding a second building or a whole nother, parking area. The major components are already there. So that's the good news.
mostly aesthetics.
That's correct. And tip from a permitting perspective, right? If we add a couple of planting beds or a couple of trees, from a planning and zoning perspective, those are pretty easy items versus, adding another curb cut or, like I said, another building or those kinds of things that have significant zoning effects.
Kurt, since that probably won't get completed before summer sometime, will we have to include in our cost estimates a restart-up charge for Martin Lavero?
Yeah, that's a great question. What I recommend is that we provide the contractor with an anticipated start date. And therefore, if he does need to build in some sort of a remobilization charge, he can do that. He may very well say, I can leave some of my equipment here for a month and minimize. So we should definitely ask him about that, talk to him about that, and see what he says. That's a great question.
Thank you.
Yeah, because if there is a charge, we want him to build it into his estimate for us.
Mhm.
And I have a question about the A2 survey that you talked about. Would that be an additional expense that we have to take into consideration? That I don't think that that would be covered by the grant,
The
or is
survey,
that already in your quote?
yep. We tried to carry it in the quote, so theoretically it's in there. We even asked around, as you know, we have our own survey team in-house. We got some other quotes which were basically the same as our, I just wanted to check to see how inexpensive I could get it. So that money is in our quote. If all goes extremely well, we could fit it all in. It's if we get hung up at any point with delays or something, it could end up costing a little bit more. And that's why we went with the time and materials
Okay.
approach, that, I don't want to spend $1 of the town's money that I don't have to spend. So we're sort of responding to the needs as they arise, meaning design changes, what does planning and zoning want, what does DOT want, and we just can't predict those things, which is why in this case, the time and materials approach was appropriate. Even to the point where going into this, we weren't absolutely certain that we would need to get the A2 survey. So I did have a conversation with Dan. I think that was last week, I think, Monday before our meeting. And he said, look, because the town has to abide by the regulations like anybody else, it's not something we can just say, yeah, don't do it. It sets a dangerous precedent. And I understand, right? It is what it is. It's a part of the process that's on the checklist. So it's something we need. We were actually hoping that there might be existing mapping available because it's a town-owned parcel. And what we've done in the past is we can actually scan in that mapping and then just design on top of it. Unfortunately, we have not been able to locate any mapping for this property.
Yeah, I don't recall any mapping coming with it. It's been there. Thank you. Mary Jo, are you muted? If you're talking, we can't hear you.
Oh, my family would say that's nice. But what I was trying to say, was there any other questions on the base plan for the preliminary design?
Nope.
All right. Thank you very much, Kurt.
My pleasure.
The next part of our agenda is to, it's basically a project update and addressing the outstanding concerns.
Mary Jo?
Yes.
We have add-ons of the poles, the decorative poles that could be in this portion regarding the extras.
Do we have any update on the polls yet, Kurt, from Martin Lavera?
Yes, in fact, I emailed him again today, telling him I had a meeting tonight and that I wanted to be able to present the data. And he said he still doesn't have it. He's having a hard time getting it. And he appeared to indicate that it was because of the supply issues that people are having, but I don't know if that means that the pricing is changing. That the suppliers are not willing to commit on a price. He almost implied that, but he just said, I don't have it yet. I still need a few days. It seems like that's how things are going with pricing these days. So I will certainly stay on top of him, and then we can bring this up at our Tuesday construction meeting.
Okay. Right. Yeah, just to remind the committee, every other Tuesday, there's a 9 a.m. construction meeting run by BSC group. And Kurt has a checklist of information he runs by Martin Lavero for update. So that would be great to kind of maybe pre-warn him that we have that expectation. I mean, I'm sure that he can get it.
I recall we had the same problem with the other project, and they were looking all over for pricing and stuff. I mean, sometimes they just are not getting what they're trying to get. So we can push them as much as we can, but it really may be a problem getting quotes and stuff.
You know, Kurt, if it comes down to it, I know maybe we'd have to look at another project that you guys worked on for an estimate and borrow from me.
Yeah, and remember, we could get from the first project, we could try to dig back and get some of that information if that if the detail backup is somewhere on file at town hall from the payment application submitted by that contractor, because that was a DOT in the truest sense, a DOT project where the inspector was out there, everything was done by item. So everything was paid by item as opposed to this project where it's lump sum. So there would be a ticket somewhere specific to the decorative poles, both the stop signs, street signs, and the decorative banner poles. So between those items, we should, and then maybe we add on, 10% or something, but at least it would give us a number that at the time was obtained from the manufacturer.
Yeah, good idea. Something else to do. Anything else on this? And I am still working on maps. I swear that we'll get something, but may not be A2 though. Okay, we'll move on to the updates, which are really, at this point, more outstanding concerns that have been raised to the committee members in our walkabouts or emails or feedback that we've gotten. Our state representative first, so, which we all saw. So if you guys are okay, I thought I just might go in order of what I'm aware of, and if you have anything else, just let me know. That sounds like a plan. Well, we'll start on Hartford Avenue. Okay. The southernmost property is 27 Hartford Avenue. And this is the homeowner who has the stone driveway, and they have the bituminous driveway, which was part of their temporary rights agreement. So they got the scope of the project, they signed the TRA, it was going to be a bituminous driveway, and they were dissatisfied with the look of the driveway. A couple of us recommended what I thought was a pretty nice fix, if you will. The asphalt is still curing, and it will be saw cut. And then to make it look like the rest of their driveway, Belgian blocks put in there. And in fact, Bonnie had shared some just similar looking drive that she had been at. It looks really nice. And in that way,
Where as well too. It was a 3-year-old driveway, and at both ends of it, both at the roadside end and where the garage is, pavement had been saw cut and the pavers had been put up right against it. And you could see it was older because there was some grass growing between the pavers, just a very little bit, but it clearly has worn well. And presumably quite a bit of work vehicles were on there because the house was rehabbed. So it's held up very well.
That's a pretty minimal cost change, isn't it, Kurt? Just to add those pavers in, talk
Yeah, it is.
couple $100.
The Belgian blocks or cobbles, as they're sometimes called, are about $5 each. There's probably 20 of them that would go across there. The contractor owes us the saw cut, because we're not happy with that edge. And then, there would be some gravel bedding put down, a mortar bed placed, and then, to make sure that it's very stable, they should be mortared together. That way they sort of lock in as a single unit, very strong. It's probably 3/4 of a day's worth of work. It would happen very quickly, a crew of a couple of guys. I look at it relative to the project as a real minimal cost item.
I have a question. What was there prior to the start of this, Kurt? Do you have a picture of, because if my memory serves me correctly, that was a bituminous driveway apron that backed up to their stone. And we're basically replacing what was there, if my memory serves correctly. So if it wasn't an issue before, I'm other than it not being looking nice right now, because I did go down and look at it this morning, and not being finished. I guess they're supposed to bring more stone in. Is that correct as well, to back up to the asphalt that's there?
Joel? Go ahead, Kurt.
You're probably talking about that little gap, Eric. That
Yeah.
will get filled in.
Okay, so either we do this Belgian block, or if what was there before was bituminous that met the stone, I'm having a hard time understanding what the problem is. What is making their driveway unusable, other than the fact that it's not completely 100% finished at this point, and not a nice edge. I understand that part, but if we have a nice cut edge and the stone is installed, what's the change from what was there?
I think when they drove in, she must have a low car because she claimed that the car bottomed out.
Well, that we're not talking about that. All of a sudden the problem changed from, I don't like the way the stones match up with the asphalt, and the asphalt is degrading, and now all of a sudden it's a wrong pitch, and my car's bottoming out, and I keep hearing all the different stories, and it's one problem after another. I got a real problem with that.
Yeah. And so thank you, Kurt, for bringing up the picture.
Yeah, thank you, Kurt, for that. So
Yeah, so it's essentially, this is what we are putting back. It's identical to what was there before. Bituminous pavement abutting the stone.
The trouble is, when they put the bituminous in, they applied the bituminous over a bunch of rock, and then it started crumbling, and then it made a swale, and they're very unhappy. So they were concerned. You were talking about setting the block on concrete of some sort, because they were concerned that if the blocks were just simply placed on the ground, they would sink and not stay at a proper level. So maybe if you put a good foundation and had the blocks set in concrete, that would work. What would that apron on the backside be if it were made out of concrete? What would be the cost of that, just for comparison's sake?
Well,
the problem is that concrete's not going to solve the problem if their car is bottoming out. That's so. Is that the issue that we're talking about? That they're bottoming out their car? I mean, it could be
well,
dirt.
That's because it was work in progress, and there was a low part. But I'm just for comparison, if that bituminous apron on the backside were made out of concrete, what would be the cost of that? Just for comparison's sake, do you think?
I
Well,
mean,
Yeah,
praying
they'd
through-
they'd have to remove the asphalt. I mean, there's to be demolition involved in that and then I mean, I can imagine that's got to be significantly higher than just doing a straight saw cut and adding some Belgian blocks in there.
I think the issue is the plan is the plan. The plan was approved by the town. The plan was approved by the DOT. We're going to make the plan better based on what we provided, but this is work on town property. It's not their property. That is our property. We are working on their property with the bituminous. And if they want, after the project is done, to do something else on town property, then they have to go through the town procedures and permitting to do something differently. But at this point in the project, and they've signed their TRA, the project has to move forward.
Right.
I would add, Mary Jo, that not only was it approved by, it was approved by them. They approved.
They signed the TRA.
They signed the TRA. They were well aware of what this was going to be. This is going to be a replacement of what existed, which was asphalt against stone. So, you know, I mean, I think if we want to offer them the Belgian block option, that's fine, but that's as far as we should go.
But we should also, you know, I know what Tim said about what's the cost of doing a concrete apron. Well, then you might as well multiply that by about 10, because every other homeowner that we have used asphalt up the entire street's going to want to know why they're not getting concrete.
Right.
But it just opens up a whole Pandora's box. I mean,
Well,
it sounds
it's
like a simple solution, but when everybody else complains that they didn't get it,
Such precedent.
it just opens up a can of worms.
It's a valid point, but you know, when you look at the edge of that bituminous, it's a bad looking job, and it sets a bad tone in the customer's mind. So I guess if we can assure them that we can bring block across the back of the driveway, set in concrete, and then back the stone up to it, that would be as much as we could do, I guess.
I thought that idea.
Apparently their concern was what Tim has just shared, that they didn't think it was going to be done in concrete or mortar so that it would sink. But of course, we won't do it that way.
Well, it's no problem. But the problem
Have you taken-
is how Bert described it.
Kurt, have you taken a look at it in person?
Yes, we were out there last Friday. I photographed it and looked at it, and we are gonna, well, we haven't done anything yet because we want to wait till the committee decides, but the initial thought was to tell the contractor that, yes, we're not happy with the way that the edge turned out. We want a nice clean edge. So the initial thought was to have the contractor go down there and do a nice clean saw cut on the edge. We wanted to make sure that that bituminous material had enough time to really firm itself up. You know, it takes a few days for it to really just kind of lock itself in place and solidify. That has happened at this point. So the simplest option is to have the contractor saw cut that ragged edge and then just bring the stone up to the edge of the bituminous material as it was pre-construction. If you wanted to take that a step further, then you get into the block option. But the most basic fix is to stick to the plan, but just have the contractor saw cut it to fix what is really kind of poor workmanship, you know, along that edge.
So that's, is it just the edge that is poor workmanship, or is it in fact that they poured asphalt on stone and it wasn't a good job? Because if it wasn't a good job, they should be responsible for redoing it. Whether it's the whole thing or the edge. But the other question that I have is it that the bituminous isn't long enough, giving it a longer ramp going in? Is it just too short? And that's where the problem is. I guess one, my concern is if it's a poor job, then it's their responsibility to correct it, I think. And make it right so that it looks good and works properly. Otherwise, if it looks decent and it's solid, not crumbling, and it meets the plans, then, everybody approved it ahead of time, including them.
Yeah, in my opinion, the apron itself looks very good, except for the edge, which could easily be rectified with the saw cut. And we have no reason to believe that it was placed on improper base. The plans define what the base has to be. That was Tim. I heard you mention that apparently, I'm not sure it was the homeowner or somebody thinks that it wasn't placed on the proper base.
Well, I could reach under the bituminous and pull out some of their rocks. So I don't know how far under the blacktop their decorative rocks go. Maybe it's just one or two rocks. I don't know. But they are definitely, the blacktop was laid over top of those rocks to some degree. If it's only one or two, then you can saw cut it and maybe there's enough material to push it up against the bituminous and you're done. If the rocks are 6 inches under the damn thing, then we got a problem.
But if the rocks are 6 inches under and there's if there's a proper base under the asphalt, doesn't make a difference if there's rocks there. It's all a matter of whether the base was properly prepared.
If you have a 2-inch rock in amongst the bituminous is going to be too thin and it's going to crumble.
Correct. But if the base was prepared properly and you have the to specification thickness asphalt, then there shouldn't be an issue. There may be a stone underneath there somewhere, but if the base is there and the asphalt is the proper thickness, and it's compact properly, and we have an inspector out there that's watching all of that, if that's all been done properly, and the only concern is that there's a ragged edge and we can saw cut the edge, then that's really all we ought to do is saw cut the edge. That's it, because that was part of the specification. That's what was there pre-existing, and it was our intention to give them at least pre-existing.
It all depends how much has to be cut back. If it's a couple of inches, that's one thing. If it's 6 inches, now the ramp is going to be short and it's going to be a drop. So I don't know. It's up to the engineers to examine it and decide. But
So I'll put an inquiry in with the foreman specific to the issue of the base that it was poured on, and to confirm that it was done per plan and spec.
And how far back the thing has to be cut.
Yeah, based on our observations, it's probably a matter of maybe an 1.5 to 2 inches.
I don't know. I saw some rocks in there. So, all right. Well, they have a very nice house, and I think we got to treat them properly, and so we'll do what we have to do. But I think we really need to know how far under the blacktop these rocks go.
Yeah, I'll make a specific inquiry with the foreman, and we'll walk down there and we'll observe it together.
Okay.
And I think that's the correct thing to do, is talk to the foreman and make sure that it was done properly and that they can make it look right. And if it has to go back more than a couple of inches, then they need to come to us with the solution. If in fact there are rocks under there that are causing that to not work properly, they need to come up with, as far as I'm concerned.
As long as we can ensure that the asphalt was properly installed with the proper base and everything else, and it's a matter of cutting back an inch or two of the edge to give it a clean cut, then I suggest, or I recommend to this committee that that's as far as we take it. We just do that much. That was the TRA, that was the original plan, and we move forward.
And Kurt, when you do talk to him, I think part of the discussion is that when it gets saw cut, that the stone that's going behind it has to be installed at the same time. Like
Yes.
it can't be cut and then we're going to come back in 6 days. And then, that's part of the problem too. It needs to be saw cut, stone put in, and it's done. And then they can use their driveway. Memorial Day is next weekend, and I understand their issue about getting into their property. So right now they can't. So this needs to be taken care of before then. So they do have their access, I think is the least we can do.
Yes, agree.
Hey, Kurt, when I took a look at it, it didn't, I mean, assuming that the base is proper on the driveway, on the bituminous apron. It's ragged. It didn't look like it was finished, but it didn't seem like it was anything more than just bringing that gravel up to the edge of that apron. I mean, it seemed like there was a little trough in there where the gravel had been taken out in order to install the apron. And you could even rake the driveway to bring that gravel up or add some more gravel. I mean, I didn't really see, is there something I'm missing here? That it's a bigger deal than just adding some gravel?
No, you're correct, Jim. It's two things I think that are causing sounds like the homeowner's concerned. The ragged edge, which yes, that is not acceptable. We want that to be a nice clean edge. And that's what would get rectified by saw cutting it nice and clean. And then, the stone does need to be brought up flush, or I should say to abut that edge. So I'll inquire to the contractor, are you waiting on stone? Did you leave that because you have to come back to saw cut? Why is the gap there? Let's just get this finished up.
Yeah, but it shouldn't.
That's really the only issue.
Why
Shouldn't be
would
a
the
big
decorative stone be under the bituminous? They should have raked it back and then put the thing in and cut it and then mesh it. I don't know.
It's possible when they poured the asphalt, some stone got mixed in at the edge there. We can't assume that it's totally underneath there. And once they make the saw cut at 2 inches or whatever they think it needs to, we'll see if there's any more stone in there, and we'll be able to assess at that time.
Yeah,
Right.
right. Good point, Eric.
All right, so it sounds like we have a game plan. Thank you, Kurt, for taking that on to talk with the foreman as soon as possible, so that we can get this cleaned up and be equitable to the neighbors and stay within plan moving forward. Can we move on?
Please.
Okay. 29 Hartford Avenue, that driveway is not done either. As you guys know, the reinforced turf has not been added yet. So I know they were concerned. They wanted their driveway wrapped up by Memorial Day. I got an email last night. I said, we will find out when the plan is to finish that off. They had some questions on the language of the TRA, which they've never signed, so I sent that back to you, Tim. I know they've been trying to reach you, so that's probably what it is about. The next is corner of Shore and Hartford Avenue sidewalk. Kurt, you were going to just check to see if that curb is done per plan.
Yes, the curb hasn't been installed yet, but when I'm down there, I will review the layout to make sure that it's per plan with the foreman.
Okay, thank you. Then in general, we got some questions on the actual project on Hartford Avenue because some of the properties are low and there was a water concern. And this is, of course, the plan was designed to do no harm, certainly, hopefully improve. I was very pleasantly, just really pleased to see that during the rain we had in April and beginning of May, the sidewalk seemed to really do what's planned. As you guys know, the sidewalks are on a 2% slant to have the water run off to the street. So I think the plan is working as we planned it to be. Are there any other questions on Hartford Avenue?
Well, just getting back to Butcher, did the bituminous ramp going into their yard stop prematurely? it looks like their ramp stops much shorter than the people to the north where the ramp goes further, I think. And they put a rock there so they could step down. I mean, so under the statute, we have the right to go in and do the ramp into their yard, don't we?
Their driveway's not done yet.
What?
It's not done.
They're getting that reinforced turf in there, Tim, if I'm not mistaken, right, Kurt?
That is correct.
Yeah, because that was what existed prior. So we just made the ramp so that we can make that the pitch and then putting the reinforced turf in there. That will occur on their property. But
So
we're still
is
waiting on
Butcher's
that.
factory or not?
Excuse me, Kurt. Excuse me, Tim. Say again.
Is the Butcher ramp to the satisfaction of everyone?
I think it just has to be married up to the reinforced turf now.
When
Yeah, I
that's
was under-
installed.
Yeah, and I wasn't sure if that was complete or something in progress. So when I'm down there, I will make a measurement. The bituminous ramp is supposed to go right to the town property line or the right-of-way line.
I think that
So-
does, yeah.
I'll verify that it in fact does. And if it's short, kind of to Bonnie's point, they need to complete it per plan.
Yeah, but if it goes to the property line, doesn't the statute give the town the ability to put it into the yard, notwithstanding the TRA wasn't signed, just because it has to be suitable access to their yard?
Well, that's what we're going to put in the reinforced turf, Tim. We're going to do work on the yard, but it's with reinforced turf, which was what was existing there. So we're not giving them a new asphalt driveway. We're just putting in the reinforced turf to match up with the apron that we've already put up there.
All right, and that has not been done, I guess, right?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay. Moving on to Shore Road, 262 Shore and Cross. The homeowner's been advised that we had some boulders that he could look at to see if they met with his expectation of what he'd like to see on his property. And so far, he has not gotten back to me. So I'm
I
still.
talked to him this morning on another matter,
Oh,
and I asked him whether he had a chance to look at the boulders. He said, no, he's been working 1,000,000 hours. I highly recommended that he get out there and take a good look at it while we're in the process of working up there. So
thank you, Frank. The next is 264 Shore Road, Teddy's Restaurant. Since last Friday, Ted has suggested that he would like a revision of the DOT plans on the DOT property. He would like to see the buffer that's on the plan be removed. In looking at this, right now, Ted does not have the town approvals to modify his site plan. I don't know how long that will take, but in order to do what he wants to do, we would have to stop the project. We would have to go back to DOT and get approval. So my recommendation at this point is to make that explanation to him and that we need to go forward if when he gets his town approvals to revise his business plan, and then he can take those to DOT eventually and see if they can get a modification of the DOT's property, because all this work is on the DOT right away.
So what does he want? What was he asking? To remove the curb on the back side of the sidewalk?
Yeah, he's creating, he's not going to have parking there anymore. So he would have some seating out there, and people would often walk to the sidewalk from his takeout window or from seating, and they're going to trip over the stupid curb. what is the purpose of the curb?
Contain the dirt, I guess, or the backside of the sidewalk, I would imagine, right, Kurt?
Yeah, the curbing, if you notice along the length of Hartford Avenue, the sidewalk is basically encapsulated by the islands, front and back, or roadside and backside, to create a buffer in locations where there are parking areas, or I should say where there's parking areas at the time of design. It's meant to provide a stopping point or a somewhat of a barrier between vehicles and people walking on the sidewalk, similar to other parts of Shore Road where we've got the, the buffer at the back of the sidewalk. And yeah, to Eric's point, we have the grass that we're using as infill. The curb serves to contain the loam and the grass also, but it's really to create a buffer between vehicles and
Well,
pedestrians on the sidewalk.
We've known for some time that Teddy's not going to have parking there, so there'll be no cars there.
Well, he could have parking there. All he did was lose a driveway cut. He didn't lose his parking lot. He could still put parking there. So I understand what his ultimate plan is, putting some tables out there, but the fact remains that he's still going to have asphalt in front of his property. It's still going to be very accessible by cars from either of the two entranceway he has. And until he makes whatever changes he's going to make, it's still the possibility that there's going to be parking there. As I recall, Kurt, the state right-of-way in front of Teddy's kind of narrows down, so there's not a lot of space between the sidewalk and the end of the right-of-way on the property line. Am I correct? I don't have the plans in front of me, but
yeah, the curb in that location was specifically located at the DOT right-of-way line to also, in a sense, create a point of demarc along that space. The buffer between the sidewalk and the DOT line in that area is about 4 feet. So that's DOT property. That property technically is not available to the property owner for their use. I don't think DOT would sanction that in any event. So the curb was also used to basically just demarc the edge of the right of way also.
Well, does your plan still show he is to have 4 parking spaces in front of his building?
We don't depict any properties. Our design work essentially ends at the right of way line, so we don't depict any
Well, I mean,
parking or anything.
the reason for the curb is because there's cars, and he might have cars on the west side. I don't know whether that would stay, but on the east side, there would be no parking. So this curb seems to be a hazard if there's not going to be parking.
well, how do we know it's not going to be parking? It's still a parking lot.
But not only that, how are you going to keep the grass and loam in there? It's gonna wash into his driveway. It has to be separated in some way, and I disagree that people would trip over it. I mean,
Curb?
over the curb, yeah.
Well, he wants pavement to go all the way to the sidewalk, and
then they're gonna trip over the sidewalk.
yeah, I mean, what if 10 years from now some other owner is in there and they just decide, well, parking is permitted here,
And he can't anyway.
between the sidewalk and the parking lot at that point.
But he can't anyway, because it's DOT property. Just like Dimitri couldn't just say, well, my sign has been here, I want to have it here. It's DOT property. It's gotta, and
So
I don't think that they're gonna give in on that.
So he's okay to continue the parking the way it used to be, right?
As long as he put a car in it, it's his property. He could park it.
We haven't,
Part of an approved site plan, nothing stopping him
right,
from making that parking. The
And-
access has been limited on the east side The west side is the same as it was. The two spots on the west side are accessible from his driveway cut.
And
The east
quite
side
frankly,
is a
would
little
have
tougher.
yeah, they probably still have 2 parking spaces on the east side too.
And if I'm not mistaken, between the east and west side is a little sidewalk that is raised that if our new curb and is a tripping hazard, that's a tripping hazard. So
That's
we're not
True.
Yeah.
changing anything. So
Oh, I thought part of the plan was the east side was not going to be any parking at all, but you're saying all the old parking can remain.
Yeah,
That's up to him. It's his property.
Well, I don't know what requirements this may have caused for him. I don't know if he understands that or not.
Well, it sounds like he's looking at this as a way to, this development to improve his business plan and his property, which I think is fabulous. I think we all would agree to that. But he's got to go through the town permitting process for that, and he hasn't started that process.
I think, Tim, I think that the key point is here, Tim, is that we're not taking away any of his property and telling him he cannot park cars there. And as long as that's the case, as long as there's a possibility of the high potential that cars can be parked there, we've got to demarc the sidewalks and create the proper structure for the sidewalk to make sure it's not creating a safety hazard. I mean, I understand where he's coming from. That's great, but now's not the time to have to make to ask these changes. Number one, we'd have to go back to DOT. Number two, it's high likelihood that DOT is not going to accept this and would put a stop on the project. And if he wants to make the changes later on, let him go, through the process and make the changes later on.
Okay, so long as he can retain those 4 parking, I guess that's the deal.
Just to be clear, we're not doing any work on his property.
Right.
It's all on,
Or taking anything away from him.
right.
and it's not our decision on what he has for parking. That's a zoning issue that we have nothing to control over. So it's not a deal that we're making. We're putting a sidewalk in on state DOT property, and that's what DOT approved. So what he does on his own property becomes an issue with zoning and all that other regulation. It's not a purview of this committee.
That's it, exactly, Eric.
And I do want to stress in the future, if he did obtain the appropriate local permits to have outdoor dining, patio type situation, once he obtained those approvals, he could then, with those approvals in hand, approach DOT if he felt that he still wanted to make modifications. He could even propose a connection to the sidewalk. At that time, it becomes something between him and DOT rights of way, and they have a process that he could follow. And so it's not like this is necessarily a forever thing. He does have the appropriate mechanism to approach them at some point once he has an approved plan in place, and he could work with them directly. Pretty common.
That's been a good thing from COVID, to have people see what they can possibly do with outdoor dining going forward. Thank you, Kurt.
I mean, I love his idea of putting some picnic tables and outdoor dining out front. I think it's great. I don't think the curb is going to have any detrimental effect on that whatsoever. But it's to Jim's point, or Eric's, I forgot, who knows, a year or 2, 10 years down the road, if somebody decides to open that up for parking lot again, then we certainly need to have that structure surrounding the sidewalk.
Okay, move on. I'm looking for, go ahead, Frank.
Please, yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, 282 Shore Road. This is a woman who came to our Board of Selectmen meeting on Monday, who now has discovered that the lot that she owns, that's an undeveloped, and had a piece of bituminous on Shore Road. that the sidewalk is going to go right through. And she came to the Board of Selectmen to ask about that whole process. This woman owns 2 lots, and the access to her improved lot where her house is on Hartford Avenue extension. There's a driveway. She can reach this unapproved lot through that grassy area. Basically, I think the approach here is what we tried to do on Monday with her is just a reminder that this project has been approved. She got certified letter, that we've learned now from the DOT, because it's an unapproved lot, it's also to be close to a crosswalk, that if she is interested in getting a driveway cut there, she has to go through the DOT process. It may not be because, again, this is a safety concern. But at this point, that's her option, to go through the DOT also if they are so inclined. However, as I said, she does have access to the lot through whoever.
Does she currently have a driveway cut in there on Shore Road?
There is a piece of bituminous. Kurt, do you happen to have that photo?
Yes, I can call that up. Bear with me, please, for a second.
We're talking about the couple last night.
Yes. Yeah.
I guess it's they're related. I think the woman is his aunt, and he's the nephew, something like that.
Yes, she's the property.
Yeah, I don't know them at all.
Well, the problem is to build anything on. You can't really do anything with the property other than attach it to an adjacent property. I'm not sure that.
Can you guys
the
see?
whole reason for a driveway cut there. I mean,
Right.
Mm.
She did mention last night they use it for parking when people visit sometimes.
it's very accessible from Hartford Avenue extension too.
It is indeed. And as the DOT informed us, that there's a concern with that being right there by a crossway, that there's a safety concern. So.
Yeah. Can we
This is the little piece
recommend
of
to her
bitumen
that she go
there.
through the process of getting a driveway cut from Hartford Avenue extension through the town? I mean, that's an easier process than trying to put it on Shore Road. And safer. If she uses it for parking,
Mhm.
maybe the recommendation to her is just go through the town for a driveway cut directly to the property, so that when you're using it for parking, you can. If there's no way of building a house on there or developing the lot or improving the lot, I don't think that it's wise to have a driveway cut from Shore Road.
I mean, I understand that the cut exists now and it's in a very unsafe place. So if we're so inclined, I mean, I'm not sure we have to go through a town process for a driveway cut on Hartford Avenue extension. We could just give
No,
her
we
a
do.
slate.
We
We
do.
do?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's very simple though. You go into zoning, fill out a form, and Ed comes out and takes a look at it. I don't think that she would have any problem getting the driveway cut.
Maybe if we can get that out there and just have the contractor, once that approves it, have the contractor put in a, 6 foot wide or 8 foot wide asphalt apron for her there.
But it could have to be to town standard.
Yeah. This
Yeah.
is a little different. This is a little different situation than I think than the others that we've been talking about. Because we're actually taking away something that exists here. So I mean, I understand that the properties can't be used for much other than a little bit of parking space. So we are taking away something from this particular property. So I think that this would be an appropriate thing for us to say, okay, we'll give you a new driveway cut on Hartford Avenue and we'll asphalt the apron to town standards. Just a suggestion.
But I don't think that's, I mean, the part about asphalting it might be something we can recommend or talk about, but approving it, it would still have to go through the process. Again, it is a very simple process. You do need an apron there. And I suspect that, zoning and Ed probably wouldn't have a problem with it. They're pretty, understanding about those from my experience, but you know, I think it's a dangerous situation on Shore Road there just to access that for extra parking, guest parking.
Yeah, and we may be taking something away, but it is in the DOT right away.
Right, exactly. The whole thing is in the DOT right away.
It's not her property. But I like your idea, Bonnie, of suggesting that another recommendation to them.
Yeah, and even if they don't go that route, they could still drive onto the grass from Hartford Avenue Extension without a driveway cut. I mean, it's not blocked by anything. So
Correct. That's
still
correct.
park cars there in the meantime. But it's a good suggestion to them. That's this is the route you would take, and they could do that on obviously. They have to do it as the owners of the property.
Right.
But since DOT has approved, and doesn't want a curb cut there because of the location, then there's really nothing that we can do about that.
That's right.
Agreed.
And the last one is 286 Shore Road. Dimitri, who we spoke to at length at our last meeting, I responded to his request to Representative Carney. I think we've certainly we've done due diligence. Certainly we've listened. We've been able to provide him a little bit more room off the island, but because that's a DOT property and for the safety integrity of the pedestrians and for the sidewalk, that is the maximum we can give him. He and I spoke at length. He can park closer to his building and he can park behind his building. So his requested solution would not be safe, as we discussed. So I think we have done all we can for 286 Shore Road, unless I hear anybody else who has any other concerns about that. Okay. Any other? Sorry
Just a quick question for Kurt. Kurt, do you know when they're going to do the bituminous curbing on shore? And do you know what the schedule is for the reinforced turf driveway completion in Hartford?
At our last construction meeting, the contractor said that would occur over the next couple of weeks. So that would mean that ending this Friday, that's our 2-week cycle. I will inquire when I'm down there tomorrow with the foreman. If he doesn't give me an answer, we may have to wait to get feedback from the project manager that attends our meetings. I'll obviously email him before our meeting on Tuesday to try to get that information as soon as possible. But it looks like they're a little bit behind on that work based on what he mentioned at the last meeting. So we'll confirm. They're moving along very rapidly on Shore Road. So I can't imagine that they're too far away from doing that work. In fact, some of that work could be separate crews, right? Because it's the sod and the turfing. I will certainly inquire when I'm there tomorrow morning.
Thank you.
Good question. Thank you, Jim. Any other questions? Right. I think what I'd like to do, if it's okay with the committee, is have a little plan of attack on how to get back to these homeowners. Tim, would you be comfortable once we get the response from Kurt on the condition of the driveway that we discussed earlier. Would you feel comfortable talking to Elizabeth and her husband about the decision, since you've talked?
Yeah. Yeah. Are you going to be looking at that tomorrow, Kurt?
Yes.
Well, maybe I could meet you down there when it's appropriate and just have a look at the, and then I'd be happy to work with them and see what we can do. Is that okay?
Oh, absolutely.
You want to give me a call when it's the right time or what?
Yeah, maybe you could email me your cell phone. I should be there between 7:30 and 9.
Okay, I'll just give it to you quickly. Can I give it to you?
Sure.
860-662-4001.
Okay, thank you.
Good. I'm late for something, so if that's okay, I need to sign off. All right,
So long, Tim.
cheerio.
See you later.
I will get back to the butchers. As soon as we find out when the reinforced turf stuff is going, I'll be happy to follow up with them. Kurt will let us know about the sidewalk and curbing when it's in on Hartford and Shore. Sounds like we're waiting on Mr. Nickerson. Teddy, I will take a shot at that. And I will take a shot with 282. And I think with 286, I believe we've done due diligence there. We have emails that showed him that what we could give him, and he responded accordingly. So I think he understands where we're at there. So
That sounds good.
okay. Moving on. Can we have approval of our minutes from 5/11?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Eric.
I'll second.
Thank you, Bonnie. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Bonnie, were you there?
Maybe I wasn't.
So you're abstaining then, right?
I'll abstain. Yep.
Okay. Any nays? So the motion passed. Thank you. Our next meeting, I believe, on my calendar is June 8th. We may have to have a special meeting to look at the bid information that we are going to expect to receive from BSC and Martin Lobero. Any other comments before we adjourn?
So should we schedule another meeting for a week from today?
Kurt, do you think that is possible to get the results by the 25th?
Boy, I would certainly really like to have the results by then to keep things moving along.
We
But-
could schedule and see what happens. Could always
Okay,
cancel.
yeah, absolutely. And I could, I was thinking of emailing Dan as soon as we wrap up here to just alert him that the plan was going to be coming tomorrow and that we're hoping to get, some preliminary pricing pretty quick.
Okay, that would be awesome. Okay, so that's May 25th, 4 p.m. to hopefully review the cost information on the preliminary design. That'd be terrific. Great. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Bonnie. Second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Jim. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Thank you, everybody, very much. Thank you,
Yeah.
Kurt.
Have a great night, everybody.
Good
Aye.
night, everybody.
See you later.
Bye.